great. It's all done on a real shoestring budget, and what they can achieve with that is remarkable.
There's a need to actually explain all of the lives of the saints.
Quite often you come across these names in history books and it's all very dry and dusty, and actually it just brings a bit of colour and spark to things again.
In these videos, it just makes the whole experience much more emotionally true, emotionally valid.
When you see the film, it really brings to life what happened then, and you can sort of put yourself in that position today.
We're actually getting the names of saints out there who have never really had much publicity, so to speak.
It's a wonderful way for we people, we parishioners in fact, to learn more about our English martyrs and the saints.
Making the lives of these saints better known.
Mary's Dowry Productions first came about through music composition. I've always been interested in writing music and playing the piano since I was about 14, and I spent quite a while writing music just for my own amusement. I wasn't interested so much in performing, but writing music. And I always approached this through emotion. So I was doing my GCSEs at high school, and we had to write various little pieces, but I would really get affected by it and really get into them. And so from that age 14, I started compiling just endless pieces of music, and I would spend hours and hours at a time at the piano writing and absorbing myself in it and really thinking about things and getting them across through music. I studied for 3 years at Northbrook College, a degree course, music composition for professional media, and graduated in 2008. For my final assignments at college, I had to do a dissertation, which I did on music in liturgy, which was fascinating and I think fundamental for my own spiritual journey and understanding of this area. And also a collaboration with someone in the media. A lot of my friends and classmates were trying to collaborate with someone in the BBC and do it that way, but I thought I would contact various people I'd seen on EWTN, and one apologist, Raymond D'Souza, who's an EWTN host and has his own apostolate in Catholic apologetics, got back to me and said, how may I help? And it developed that I worked with him in producing some promotional trailers for him with original music, and he was really pleased with them and really supportive. It was interesting, his whole family in America had a real deep interest in England and the heritage of England and Walsingham and the English saints and the history. After college, I didn't really know what to do with the degree and everything I'd learnt, so I just left and graduated and just thought I'd see what happened, so continued working part-time. And my sister, for a couple of years, had been working in Arundel in a bookshop there, and every day she'd been going up to the cathedral, Arundel Cathedral, popping in for a couple of years, until one day she thought, hang on a minute, there's a tomb here of Philip Howard. Who is he? There's just a couple of stained glass windows and leaflets of him looking quite abstract, Elizabethan man in a ruff. But his tomb's there, so she really made a point of visiting it, and I wanted to know more about him. So we asked ourselves, who is Philip Howard? Who is this English martyr? His story was very, very inspiring, and what was even more inspiring, that he was a Catholic and he had the same faith as us. So we thought, how can we present this to other people? There's only just a leaflet on him, and people are so busy they're not even gonna read about him. And even so, how do you get across how exciting and that zeal that we discovered with him to the ordinary person? So we thought, okay, let's use the tools that I've learned at college, music, and especially that's always been fundamental from the beginning, the power and the emotion of the music, and let's use the new media, as Pope John Paul II called for, to present something on St. Philip Howard in a way that, for us mostly, that we would want to see and we would want to experience. So we literally both of us went down to Curry's and bought ourselves a £160 Handycam, our first camera, and just drove over to Arundel and filmed bits of the town and the cathedral and the tomb of Philip Howard, and then back at home we got our parents to help us with the narration. And then we thought, let's not just stand there and say Philip Howard was born whatever, an historian, the usual approach. Let's make it interesting and let's present the production from Philip Howard's point of view. We thought, because we're making it for ourselves, what would we want to hear? We'd like to hear Philip Howard tell us his story and really encounter him.
The dreaded Tower of London, my home for the next 11 years. Stunned but resolved, I embraced my prison. This was our Lord's will for me. I accepted my part in his mystical body and offered him all that I was to suffer.
We ended up with a 25-minute production with Philip Howard telling his story right from the beginning, his whole journey to his eventual death in the Tower of London, and it was narrated by Dad and with final narration with Mum. So it's literally just the four of us and our family who put this very first production together.
From 1138, the Eldon passed almost directly through the generations of my ancestors, reaching me during a turbulent time.
We had no experience whatsoever save music. The final thing to do was for me to write a music score, which was my first project since college and the longest score I'd written. We put it onto DVD and we thought, okay, let's show it to the parish. It was literally an original tool that we'd come up with and worked on for ourselves, for friends and family, and for our parish. So we showed it in our parish, and the response to it was really interesting. A lot of people really were inspired, and there are aspects of this dusty old Elizabethan man that they didn't know. They actually encountered him. Other people were outraged because the Elizabethan history, the proper history, Catholic history, real history of England and our country, is not presented, especially in England. The BBC and the secular media is always Whig history, so like the golden years of Elizabeth, Queen Elizabeth I being tolerant. Well, no, she wasn't tolerant, especially to her cousin Philip Howard, the Earl of Arundel, who died after 11 years in prison. Very, very sad and emotional story.
England was in a time of turmoil and cruel persecution of her ancient Catholic heritage. The bloodthirsty reaction toward the Catholic faith after the threat of the Spanish Armada resulted in many Catholic deaths, and soon Elizabeth's eyes turned to me.
It was Philip Howard and this encounter over several months working on this that just sparked in my sister and I this immense zeal for the English Martyrs. Philip Howard was one of a group of 40. At the moment they were just names on a list, and he was one of them. And if his story's so inspiring and brilliant, who are these others? And it was about this time we were talking with a friend in London over coffee, and she said, because she was very interested in this, don't you find it interesting that the English martyrs, this group, particularly the 40 martyrs, they all died these horrific deaths and had these amazing stories right back 400 years ago, but they weren't canonised as saints until 1970. Why such a gap? It's as if all of the graces and merits and witness that they achieved for us in England and their blood soaking the soil of our country was stored up until now, 1970s and until now, when we most need it. So we got that sense of there's an immense power and witness and something to be tapped into with this, particularly this group of 40 martyrs, for now, when we most need it. So we decided there and then we would try and make a production on all of them. So we decided to call ourselves, our production company, Mary's Dowry Productions, because Mary's Dowry was an ancient title for England, England having been dedicated by several kings to Our Lady as her dowry, and known for centuries as Mary's Dowry. So Mary's Dowry Productions, making films specifically about English heritage, culture, history, historical figures, saints and martyrs of our land, which is our ancestors and our heritage. We spent the first year or so of Mary's Dowry Productions after St Philip Howard producing a couple of other documentaries. We did a documentary on the Sistine Chapel reproduction and the Martyrs' Walk. We then decided that we would like to work on something on Edmund Campion, who's one of the more popular English martyrs and quite well known. When we produced St Philip Howard, we'd presented it using a lot of original footage of Arundel and relevant maps and historical pictures and sacred art. But there's only so much available for this period, this Elizabethan era. And we decided that in order to produce something on St Edmund Campion, we're going to have to come up with some more creative ideas to present this. We were discussing one day ideas of how to approach this production of St Edmund Campion, and we suddenly thought, wouldn't it be amazing to put flesh on St Edmund Campion and these other people, to have someone put on a costume and portray him, to actually be able to see him writing his famous brag and 10 Reasons, walking throughout Elizabethan history, and it would really bring history alive and make it real. So I asked a college friend, someone who went all through college with me, he's not someone of faith, but he really loves the music side of things, and I said, would you be up for putting on a costume and going out with us and doing a bit of filming? And he was like, yeah, that's fine, I'll do that. So he came over one day, we arranged it, came over from the Isle of Wight, and we went out with him and my cousin. We had them in just a couple of Elizabethan costumes that we just acquired off the internet, and we literally got a selection of visual images of them portraying St Edmund Campion and Brother Ralph travelling. Coming into England, we went down to the sea to just portray St Edmund Campion coming in off the boat on the shore, and then just their travels throughout Elizabethan England, and it was really, really effective. Literally, the moment we lined them up with the viewfinder and press record, there was Edmund Campion for the first time in hundreds of years. It was so real.
Yeah, no problem. There's a biggie coming. Now. That must be... Oh, that's brilliant. Okay, when you're ready, do that again. Oh yeah, my one preferably. There's something about costume dramas. Right, so go down, put down your stick, kneel down and make the sign of the cross, I think. And open your book. Excellent. But you might have to do it one more time because that might have been the Orthodox way. Yeah, they do it left to right. Catholics do it right. Yeah, Catholics do it left to right.
Left to right?
It's the fine detail.
Cool.
Just literally, you're the priest elevating the host. So,
and after that, what?
bring it down, put it down, and maybe, and then we'll pause it. Yeah,
we can merge it.
Cool.
yeah. So if you literally do that when you're ready. Yeah, and Johnny, you can just look down. That looks really good. Okay, yeah. So when you're ready.
So I was able to approach St Edmund Campion music score from my experience with St Philip Howard, working on that. The way it starts, we start with kind of the visual perspective of Edmund Campion on the hurdle. So it starts with as if him going along being dragged to Tyburn, and it's quite shocking to actually be there in his shoes. The reality, you hear about these Elizabethan martyrs, oh yes, they died for their faith and how brave, but they were real people and they were actually in that position and they actually went through that. So I approached the music trying to encapsulate this whole concept, this fear, this emotion and this real power through music. So the end result of St Edmund Campion was actually extremely powerful, and we had, at the very first launch of it in our parish, we had a lot of people moved, some tears, and yeah, it was generally very, very good feeling.
I stand on the edge of eternity, Lord. In only a few moments I will see you face to face. I die your servant, a Catholic man and a Catholic priest. We arrived at Dover, passed through the police at the docks, and once out of view, I fell to my knees. It will not be long before we are hunted, Lord, I prayed. Week after week, this pace continued. Whenever I made my way back down to London and past the infamous Tyburn tree, I would take off my hat and walk under the gallows in honour of the martyrs, knowing that it was here that I would have my final warfare.
I'm particularly pleased that you do the music to this, because this is the development of what you did when you were studying, and particularly you looked when you were studying at how you capture the mood of a narrative and how you underscore it, literally underscore it, so that you can create the music that fits the emotions that are obviously in the piece, and also you can put into it themes. You can put into that film a number of other areas that you can't put into the script. You wouldn't want to put into the script.
The style of Mary's Dowry Productions has developed over time. In St Edmund Campion we had about 5 to 10 people involved, mostly focusing on Edmund Campion and Brother Ralph, with a few extras.
Well done.
It is very similar to the one I have in Orange.
Right, I've got oh, that does look really good.
As times progress, we've got more and more people involved in the films, and we now have a core team of actors, well, they're parishioners, friends and families who portray for us. In the barn next to our church, which is an old old barn, real barn. It used to be the church until the new church was built. We're allowed to have it on a Saturday when it's free, every so often, to film. And we can get in there on a Friday night, and Dad, who's experienced in art and he does all our props for us, he gets the Friday evening time to set up a whole set that we need. We're able to film with people arriving throughout the day on a Saturday and get everything we need for a production, and everything has to be down and cleared and all put away by Saturday evening. So it's quite intense the way it's developed, but it really, really works well. We're currently building a set for our 2 productions on St Thomas More and St John Fisher. This set will be doubled up as King Henry VIII's throne room and also St Thomas More's house and St John Fisher's house. So we're going to change it about a bit, but Dad has currently spent the past week building bits and pieces of it and painting them up and getting them all ready, and we've just loaded up the van and brought them all up here and brought some bits from our friend's garage who stores some stuff for us. So this is the process of the first bits of the set going up the very beginning, so we're going to watch it grow and see how it takes shape. We thought, wouldn't it be brilliant in the throne room to have some pillars? So we had to rack our brains and how we would have this, especially only being able to be in the barn for one day to construct the set. But a friend of ours, Nick, was able to contact a firm and to have delivered some cardboard tubes. So he got these delivered, got them over to Dad, and then Dad was able to treat them, weigh them out with PVA, and then do marble effects on them to make them real, genuine paint effect marble pillars. And then we took those all up the barn on a Friday night, and he built a dais for the throne to sit on, and we decided these are the scenes that we want to see portrayed to go with the script, and then just put our ideas together of how to utilise one set to cover all of these scenes to get it all done in one day.
Actually, perhaps read something really serious as we're all getting. John Joe's got the giggles about the 3 Bears story. Okay, I think we're done. It looks really excellent. We might need to do that again.
My name's Paul Harrison. I've been working off and on with Mary's Dowry now for a couple of years. I'm Henry VIII today. I've played a load of different characters, usually henchmen. The evil side of things is quite nice. It's great. It's all done on a real shoestring budget, and what they can achieve with that is remarkable. It's all smoke and mirrors, and it's great. And it's fantastic to be able to bring sort of lives from history which are still relevant today to life. It's quite often you come across these names in history books and it's all very dry and dusty, and actually it just brings a bit of colour and spark to things again. So it's interesting. It amuses the children to see me with fake hair again.
Today, as you can see, I'm playing Cardinal Wolsey. In Margaret Clitheroe I was a soldier, and I've played the part of a fisherman in one, and a soldier and a couple of different other productions, and today I'm here as Cardinal Wolsey. One likes to help out in these things because the people making these films are trying to bring forward for everyone the truth and about what really happened, so that Christians can see how Christians have borne forward and how they've become martyrs, to bring out the life of the saints into our society today, so that we may know what they went through or have an idea of what happened in those times, and how staunch they were in their belief of God and would not give way to everything, including going as far as death. When you see the film, it really brings to life what happened then, and you can sort of put yourself in that position today. It's done absolutely excellently. Everything is very, very professional for a very junior and hard-working team. They do a very good job, and I hope it continues for many years and that it brings to life for people what Christianity is all about.
The way we approach things is, I think, quite unique. Over the years of Mary's Dowry productions, we've kind of developed our own style. What we do is we tell the story of the saint or martyr or figure from their point of view, so that you can really connect with them and encounter them. And they tell you their story over a narration overlay, and then we provide visuals to accompany this and an original music score.
I stood before the crowd, closing my eyes as the noose was put around my neck.
The way we presented St. Philip Howard was using a lot of visuals of Arundel, the cathedral, his tomb, portraits and documents and things like that. But to be honest, if we wanted to make productions on all of the martyrs, all from that era, there are literally 5 pictures of Tyburn in existence, and some of the martyrs are so unknown that there's 1 portrait, if any, on them. So we decided we'd have to be very creative and use all our creativity and imagination to do this. The idea of having the saint tell you his story, and the idea of portrayals, to not have the actor speak and it not to be about the actor, but it to be about the saint, to hear his story and encounter him, but at the same time see him and see the people who he knew and who were involved in his life. And there's just something very original and very powerful about that. People have said that's what they love about them.
I think it takes you back to an older style of narrative. I always used to go home and watch the European programs for children, and they would always have little pieces of film and a narrative that ran through it. And I used to love that, and I think it doesn't get done enough. So I think you've chosen a very good style.
I was invited to court after the royal wedding to present the king with an epithalamium. This poem, which I had specially written for the king and queen on the celebration of their sacrament of marriage, charmed them greatly and won for me the affection of the king. From thence we became good friends, and King Henry VIII regarded me with great respect. As I was led between the soldiers, my dear daughter Margaret broke through the crowds and threw her arms about me. Unable to say any words, but "Oh my father, oh my father." I told Margaret to have patience, for this was God's will. She was fain to depart from me, but we were separated, and I would never see her again.
I really like the fact that I can do it in my own studio. As you can tell, we're doing it here, and it's quite nerve-wracking. It's quite nerve-wracking to do it in front of a camera, whereas in my own studio, I can make as many mistakes as I like, and I do make a lot of mistakes, and then I edit them out. And also, you practice it and you build it up, and it takes you go through quite a few times, but you get a better result in the end. So for me, to get the script, to be able to run through it, and a couple of times I've emailed you back and asked you a few questions, certain things that I'm not sure about, certain things, and also certain pronunciations. I have almost an exclusive contract with you. It's almost an exclusive contract.
Father John Gerard was fiercely hunted by the government. He would often hide in my priest holes, and on one occasion was concealed for several weeks at an important Catholic home called Braddock's. It was an extremely tense moment when the priest hunters lit a fire on the hearth beneath which Father Gerard was concealed. When Father Gerard was captured and held in the Tower of London, I carefully planned his famous escape. Once he had escaped out of the prison, 2 servants rowed him down the River Thames, where I awaited with horses, and we galloped off into the country.
When St. Simon was older, he began to yearn for solitude. He spent many hours alone outside, where he contemplated God, reflected in creation. His days were filled with reading and contemplation, and he studied scripture and the writings of the early church fathers.
I think the thing I'm most proud of for being involved in these films is the fact that we're actually getting the names of saints out there who have never really had much publicity, so to speak. Some of these, the ones I get asked to do sometimes, I've never even heard of, I have to admit. Never heard of Polydor Plaisden until we started doing a film on him. There's a few others like that as well. But I think the one thing I'm really grateful for the company is the fact that it actually got me back into my faith. I was sort of lapsing a bit. I just sort of went to church out of habit more than anything until I started to realise how amazing these saints were, what they actually did for us. Yeah, I've always sort of appreciated that. It's sort of given me the spiritual boost that I needed, I think, especially in this day and age where you sort of don't really get it much else in any other place, I mean. So I'm always going to be grateful for that. I've been involved from the very beginning, actually, from when we did St Edmund Campion, which must have been back in 2008, I think. That was quite fun, albeit we shot that in some very cold environments, so a bit painful as well. But I'll always have good memories of my time here. And I hope for, as long as they'll want me, I'm happy to do it for forever, rest of my life. That's it.
It's quite traumatic.
Oh no!
The gloves on.
Oh.
Yes, go.
First and foremost, our love is the English Martyrs, and we're gradually working our way through them. We've produced St Philip Howard, St Edmund Campion. We did St Margaret Clitheroe. We worked on St Nicholas Owen, the priest hole maker, which was really exciting, and St Anne Line, which is my personal favourite out of all of them so far. It's just so moving at the end.
I was to be executed with 2 priests, friends that I had known for many years, Father Roger Philcock and Father Mark Barkworth.
And then the trilogy of St Polydore Plaisdon, Edmund Jennings and Swithin Wells. But alongside the Martyrs, because English history and the whole of English culture going right back is so important, we discovered our Saxon heritage as well, and there's some amazing saints in that era, such as St Cuthman, who's local to us, and St Wilfrid, the bishop. St Etheldreda, the abbess of Ely. In St Etheldreda production, we filmed a lot of it in Petworth Park, which is local to us, and they've got deer running wild there, and we were able to capture all this and incorporate Etheldreda. There she is, flesh and blood for the first time in 1,000 years, walking in Ely, represented and portrayed with the deer. It's just beautiful. Another thing that's extremely important in our productions is beauty. Because people are so busy, they don't really get a chance to look at nature and absorb it. And there's something about nature through a lens, to take the time to film like some fuchsias, beautiful flowers, or some foxgloves, and have them fill up the whole screen. And we always make a point of having nature and scenery interspersed throughout our film to give people the chance to absorb it and look at it.
At last, in this remote area, I spent my days purifying my mind from worldly things. I loved to gaze upon creation, for in nature I saw the simplicity, the beauty, and the love of God. I practiced prayer, meditation, and the presence of God, and implored Our Lady to grant me purity and perfect love of God. Our Lord drew closer to me, and in the silence of my heart He made known that He had plans for Christendom which He wished to orchestrate through me, plans which would help many souls in the centuries to follow. Thus I made good progress along the narrow way as a friend of the cross of Christ.
All of this enthusiasm that we have and try to get across in our films, it always comes back to England and our heritage. And if you love history, and if you love the English culture, and if you love particularly the Elizabethan era, and if you love your faith, and even if you have no faith or looking for truth, then these films, they have that, and they present something. There's something about them.
I think it's a wonderful way of keeping up with your faith. It's a wonderful boost to your faith, because just going to a church on a Sunday and chatting with people around, you miss something somewhere. That's part and parcel of our Catholic lives. But it's remembering the history that went before that. And there were so many people who lived a life of a Catholic as it should be lived. Whether I would be as strong as they were, to be able to say, yes, I am a Catholic, no, I will not go down that path. And even if you're going to hang me, I'm still going to continue. I don't know. We don't know the test until it comes, do we? Would we be firm enough in that? And I say that's the joy of Mary's Dowry Productions, that you have done so much for the Catholic faith in that way. I think it's wonderful, wonderful work.
Well, I've been involved for about over a year now, and what I find amazing is that there's a lot of prep work done before any of the actors come onto the stage, and there's all the research and all the scripting done, and all the sets are put together and the scenery is made, and then all the actors have to do is just turn up. We've already been fitted for our costumes, and then we reenact those scenes, and we ad-lib as we're talking through the scenes. And we have a great time doing it, it's fun, and then in several months' time the DVD comes out and there you are on the big screen. It's great fun. Thank you.
Come out of the shot now. If you want to...
Oh yeah. Almost. Brilliant. Very good.
Shall we do it again? Because then I'm just going...
That's the shot. That's the shot.
Oh, I love it. Love coming to
That's
church.
very good. I know, take away off your corns. What have you got there in your hand? ABC.
Wondering on the best angle.
Previously I played Blessed John Mason, and now I'm St. John Fisher. And last week I had my head cut off as part of the execution scene, and now we're filming all the interiors today. Gary's put all the sets together, and we're just having a coffee break now, and then the set will be changed around ready for this afternoon's shooting.
We started out with no knowledge of costumes, so we literally got a couple of costumes off the internet. We built up over the years more expensive costumes, ex-costumes from fancy dress hire and things like that. But more recently, a friend of ours, Kathy, has offered to use her knowledge and skill in sewing to design costumes for us and hand make them to measure. So we decide which person is going to portray a particular character, and then how we want to see them. We use pictures and things to present them as we want them to be seen, and then they'll go to Kathy's and be fitted, and then the costume will be handmade, and it makes it so much more authentic, and it's really added to Mary's Dowry Productions.
We started off with Saxon princesses like that, and as time went on we've expanded into half a dozen Carmelite nuns, and Henry VIII, St. Thomas More, John Fisher, the chasuble and the maniple and the stole, and that came from a curtain. That was lovely material to work with. Yeah. A double damask for the chasuble, which was, as I say, lovely fabric to work with, and King Henry's jacket, cloak, that was silk, a curtain remnant, but oh, it was beautiful to sew. I enjoyed that. It's good fun to do. I've learned something about the more obscure saints, and something a bit more about the ones I thought I knew about. The Saxon princesses were, and in fact the Saxon serfs as well, were made out of dust sheets, which were cut out so badly that I was teasing the person who cut them out and said, "Did you use the garden shears?" And he said, "No, actually. I used my Stanley knife because I couldn't find the scissors." So I'd gone from teasing and being quite rude to completely taken aback. We do research quite a lot, partly on the internet, partly from books and from the library. I really enjoy that part, and it's just really good fun.
Over the years we've really built up quite a lot of props that Dad's built for us, and also we've had several filming days. We initially would buy the wood for a set and then use it. Dad would build it and we'd use it for the day, but because we're just in a small terrace house, we've got no garage or shed or anything, we would throw it away and lose all that money, and then the next filming day have to acquire it again, and do everything from scratch. But a friend of ours, Adrian, he's been in our film since the very beginning. He's kindly lent us his garage to store all our stuff. We can now utilise the sets and store them in his garage, which makes things so much easier. So he's getting quite full up with all of our props and more and more wood for different sets and designs. So it makes the filming day much easier because we can start off by going to Adrian's garage and just bringing everything to the barn rather than going to Wickes and buying wood from scratch and then having to repaint and redo all the paint effects. We can reuse it.
It's a wonderful way for we people, we parishioners in fact, to learn more about our English martyrs and the saints, you know, because you hear the names quite often, but to know their stories, you don't, unless you either read them. But it's even better to be able to take part. If you can take part, you're then realising what those martyrs and saints actually went through. And that's the wonderful part with this, that being asked to take part in these, it's wonderful. I look forward to it. What have I taken part in that I've enjoyed most? I don't know, that's difficult. I was within Wales in one, when I was being chased around by Topcliffe with his sword, about to have my head chopped off. And of course eventually I ended up by being hung, drawn and quartered, I believe, or at least hung anyway. I look forward not only to the taking part with everybody else, but in buying the DVDs that I can then show to my friends at home whenever I want.
We tend to stick to English saints because that's what we're about as Mary's Dowry, but in late 2010 someone suggested that we produce something on Blessed Alexandrina Maria da Costa. Now this was very interesting, the way it came about, because one day a little booklet on Blessed Alexandrina arrived in our PO box address. And I opened the envelope, I'll never forget it, pulled it out and was confronted with a photograph of Alexandrina. It was amazing for me because when I was 14 years old I had a great devotion to this blessed. It was like totally meant to be. And we spoke to this person, Kevin, who had suggested that we produce something on her, and it was basically, she's very, very important, but there's nothing on her. There's a couple of booklets, and that's it really. So he suggested why not use our knowledge and experience in DVD to put something together on her that people can encounter. We're quite open and enthusiastic to suggestions, so when Kevin suggested we produce something on Blessed Alexandrina, we said, okay, yeah, we'll do that. This seems really guided and very important. We're willing to do it. We thought, okay, we'll try and do it as a documentary, maybe even fly out to Balazar in Portugal and film the locations relevant, maybe interview some people, but for various reasons this seemed impossible. And then we thought, okay, we'll use what we know. We'll use our original style, Mary's Dowry Productions style of portrayals and narration, and do it that way. So we booked a day in the barn to film and got all prepared and all set to do it. Only thing is we had no actor to play Alexandrina. She's Portuguese, long dark hair, very specific face, and we had no one like that in our core group of people who help us out. But we thought we'll book it anyway and we'll leave it to Our Lady, and if it's meant to be, someone will come along. A few weeks prior to the date, and we were getting a bit worried, my dad took his van in for an MOT, and whilst it was being done he popped into the local church to visit the Blessed Sacrament, and whilst he was in there, there was a girl that we've known for many years called Agnes. She's Korean, and she had happened to see one of our productions on EWTN. So she came over to my dad and said, I just found out what you're doing, I'd love to be involved, I'll help, I'll make teas and coffees, clean up, anything, just let me know. So Dad told us, and all of a sudden everything fell into place. Agnes is actually pretty much identical to Alexandrina. She may be Korean, but if you look at her and compare her to a photograph of Alexandrina, they're very, very similar. So we thought, okay, it's meant to be, let's ask Agnes. And she agreed, quite nervously, but she came along, and for the morning it was just my sister, myself and Agnes filming. And we had some scenes to do. Alexandrina's story is extremely powerful. She was paralysed from the age of 14, but one thing I found absolutely fascinating when I had a devotion to her when I was young was that she used to kind of live out the Passion of our Lord on Fridays for a period of time, and she was completely paralysed. She couldn't even move. She was in such agony, but on a Friday she would get up in an ecstasy out of bed and walk around, and we thought, wouldn't it be amazing to portray this, because it's very, very fascinating. So we were portraying some scenes of this Passion with Agnes, and all of a sudden we heard a huge crash and lots of screaming outside, and there was a car crash just outside the church we were filming, and no one was hurt, but there was a real atmosphere, and we thought, okay, we'll just continue. The whole Passion was filmed with sirens and screams, and there was a real atmosphere. At the same time, my dad was doing some church restoration for an Anglican vicar in Kent, and the vicar had lent him a statue to restore and paint up, and we had it in our kitchen, and Dad was working on it. We were planning some scenes for Alexandrina film, and we were looking at some photographs of Alexandrina's house, and we thought, that statue is in this photograph. It's a very specific statue that we'd never seen before, and if we'd wanted to include it in a scene, we wouldn't know how to go about it, but Dad contacted the vicar and asked permission to use it in a film, and he said yes. So just the period of time that it was in our house before being restored and sent back was the period of time that was our filming day for Alexandrina, so we were able to take it up carefully, put it in the production for these scenes of her bedroom, and then give it back. And it was just things like that happen all the time with Mary's Dowry Productions, and it's very, very exciting.
Jesus said to Blessed Alexandrina,
"If you knew how much I love you, you would die of joy. I have established my home in your soul. I want you to preach devotion to the tabernacles. I want you to kindle in souls devotion to this prisoner of love. I do not stay in this world only for those who love me, but for everyone. Even those engaged in work can console me."
In her final years, Alexandrina increasingly prayed for the church as Jesus told her that it was facing a great crisis. He said to Blessed Alexandrina,
"Tell my ministers to be vigilant, for the devil is preparing a massive assault on the church. But pray and trust. Victory will be mine."
To the people who continued to visit her, Blessed Alexandrina constantly exhorted them to live the message of Fatima, telling them to make reparation to our Lord in the adorable Eucharist. Our Lord pleaded to Alexandrina for more victim souls to turn the scales of divine justice, and she would tell the many thousands who visited her, adding that she felt she was shouldering the burden almost alone.
We make our productions available on DVD, and they're online on our online shop, our website www.marysdowryproductions.org. You can write to us. We make them available on DVD so that not only people can easily have access to them and buy them, but it also really helps us out. All of our money and all of our spare time goes on these films. We're not interested in anything else. We were filled right from the beginning with such zeal. We're probably completely mad, but everything that we own and all our time goes in Mary's Dowry Productions. So to have the films available on DVD really, really helps us out. If you just take that step and make a purchase, it goes such a long way for helping us buy a prop that's needed, or a new costume, or to go towards building a set. And it just helps make more productions.
Well, Mary's Dowry Productions, of course, are the firm, if you like, that now put out all the DVDs of the saints. And again, the wonderful part is that that is now getting to be known around. I have a number of friends, even friends in Australia, who are so interested in it. So I have sent them out all the information about the Mary's Dowry productions. And in fact, again, I have just sent my friends in Ipswich copies of several of these. And Mary's Dowry Productions provide now so many of these DVDs.
There's a market, there's a need to actually explain all of the lives of the saints.
Buy these DVDs, take them home and watch them when you want to watch them too.
I've just been watching the Mary Dowry productions and it is excellent, very, very educational, makes you realise what all the people before went through, because we have no idea of all those things until you see it, because nobody doesn't know anything until they're told about it. So it's very, very educational and well worth watching.
Super idea, I love the work you're doing and keep doing it. It's a huge, well, I'm literally really lost for words because what you do is so professional and polished and accomplished. It's really lovely and thanks for all the work that goes into it. And I'll tell people about it whenever I can.
So if you were just to try it out, just pick one film that looks vaguely appealing from our catalogue and just give it a go. Buy one and pop it on and see. Guarantee you'll have a fascinating encounter with these amazing heroes.